Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about our mini survival kit and the overall concept of having a survival kit and why it's important and what are the situations that you can use it in. So, I first want to start off with just addressing the pieces of the survival kit, and then I'll come back to a few of the concepts, which I'll get into a little bit while we're talking. But the main categories that you need to have, in my opinion, and how I've tried to structure this mini survival kit as we've brought it to market over the past decade and continue to refine it, is that there's some overall hierarchy in the categories that you need to have stuff to treat. So, and I say treat, but more in a sense, have the tools to be able to enable your skills to survive. So this is more of a outdoor scenario. This is not like an urban survival kit. This is the true like light a fire, gather water, that type of thing. So without further ado, the type of kit that we have is comprised of fire and light, so that's a big category for us. And to take care of that, we've got some lifeboat matches. You can call them a bunch of different things, but these are NATO matches, lifeboat matches. There's a bunch of different names for them. But the purpose of these is that if you light one with the included striker that we put in them, in a little bag to keep them secure, is that I've literally taken these, lit them, and put them into snow, pulled them right back out, and they're still going. So they're really powerful and pretty much the best match on the market. And you'll find that with, I mean, we've been doing this a decade, like I said, continuing to refine it. We just continue to find ways to improve upon the parts that are in the kit as well as what they do. So that's one method to light a fire. And a common theme that you'll see and hear me talk about is that we like to use the two is one, one is none concept in designing things, and this is one in particular where it stands out. So instead of just having one method to light a fire, we've also included tinder quicks as well as a ferro rod that you can spark with our folding razor saw. So this has not only a knife blade, which we'll get into later as far as the utility goes, but the saw blade has got teeth on it, obviously, but it sparks really easily with that included saw blade. But tinder quicks are great. As soon as you throw a spark into a tinder quick, it starts. I mean, it provides a great source of, I guess, fire starting ability. So as soon as that goes, you can just pile on tinder in small increments, and the concept of starting a fire is not kind of what I'll go over. But either way, that's kind of the concept with the two is one, one is none as far as fire starting goes. However, there's actually a third way too. So we include a Fresnel lens in there. So that can magnify the sun's rays and you can actually start a fire with that. This is like the last thing, like last ditch effort that I would use to start a fire. That and making a bow drill or something. But you know, once you actually have this on tinder, leaves are a bad fire starter. Most people use this on leaves and they'll never burn. But anyway, that's something that you can do as well, but like I said, more of a last-ditch effort, and we include it just for the backup factor of having a Fresnel lens. And of course, you know, if you're reading a book somehow in your survivalness in the woods, you can, you know, adjust for your old man eyes. Anyway, my dad carries one in his wallet. All right, so we've also got a signaling mirror, so that's another part of that this element. So you've got fire and light, then you've got signaling and communication. So while there's not room for really putting something in communication, you can technically use a fire as signaling and communication too. So there's like kind of your double duty. So this is a dedicated signal mirror. It looks a little weird because there's actually a plastic that's on the front, but it's very mirror-like. The hole in it is not only a lanyard hole, but it's also something you can use to sight with too when you're actually using that for signaling. So got that as well. And then navigation, we've got a tiny little compass that I think is one of the best compasses on the market in the tiny sense like this. There was a company before called Tokyo Compass. They used to manufacture one of the best AA rated compasses, if you will. There's ratings, like A ratings, but this is one that's completely oil filled. It still has a luminous dial, so it can, you know, take a flashlight or a light source like fire and make that glow, but it's more of a backup too. So I like to think of the backup for something like this as just knowing your cardinal directions at all times and being able to navigate through the stars. So that's a big thing too. Knowing where Cassiopeia sits and the Big Dipper and how those both point to the North Star can be a real big plus for you too, if you're in that situation where you have to use them. So then we move on to water and food. So water and food are handled through aqua tabs, and sometimes we'll also include Katadyn tabs. Both of these can be difficult to get a hold of at times, but they both do the same thing. I like both of the products. However, I tend to prefer aqua tabs just because they're smaller and I can fit more stuff inside the kit. And again, you know, it comes in a crush-proof container like this, but you know, the more space you have, the more things you can add. So get into that later. Now, and that's not saying that this is the be-all end-all of a survival kit or a mini survival kit, but it does have a little bit of room to add certain things to it. So anyway, water bag. This is a 1 liter water bag, which is nice. So it folds out completely like so. And you can gather water in there and then treat it with the drops. So that's like one element of your water. Another could be just actually using the bag itself to wrap around leaves. Eventually they will, I don't know what you would call that. I guess it's through photosynthesis that they're excreting stuff you would collect, and then there's water in the bag. Yeah, I know the principle, I'm not sure what it's called. Right, so water bag, aqua tabs, and then also as another just method for water, it's the knowledge of where to find water too. So like knowledge is key when you're dealing with water and basically purifying it, which you're doing with the aqua tab. So that is the water angle, and then food is the flip side of that. So you're gathering water, you have to have nutrition and food. So through that, we've got some brass wire, so you can use this to create a snare to trap food, if you will. And then lots of survival kits have fishing kits, but the likelihood of you actually going fishing when you're surviving is fairly low. But we include Kevlar cordage, and Kevlar cordage is more on the urban side because it can be used to saw through zip ties in the event of an illegal restraint scenario. However, the new Kevlar cordage that we're starting to include now is a little softer, so the other stuff used to be more rigid. It's still bonded, which means it still has the strength and the rating that Kevlar cordage has, but now you can actually unweave it a little more, and each one of those, if you take a look at that, is a little strand that could be used to tie together. This could be used in building a shelter too. We'll get into shelter building in a little bit too. But that is a topic, so shelter protection, that's where that kind of comes in as well. And then the whole food aspect too, it's, yes, you've got the snare wire to trap food, but just I guess the knife is really kind of a part of that as well. So that's kind of food gathering. You will have to break down or tear down food to actually cook it and things like that. So that is the method there. And then knives and tools are important too. We just talked about that. Got the knife, got the saw. Both of these are tools. This can be used in shelter building as well. So sawing branches to actually build a shelter, that's important too. As you can see, it's a little mini kit, but like the scope of like what it can do is pretty powerful and low cost considering some other stuff that we've seen out there that are kits that are built like this. So I really take pride in this kit. Like I said, we've been doing it a long time and I've always continued to refine it, and little mini survival kits are kind of a little passion of mine. I like trying to get out there and use what's in the kit and, you know, say, oh, well, this is working, this is not working, let's continue to refine that. So even the case itself, so this is what we call our crush-proof case. So it's not going to break on you like a Altoids tin would. That's where we kind of started with this kit. We used to put them in an Altoids container, and while this is not completely waterproof, it is a little more water resistant than the Altoids tin was. And we do have an extra case that we sell too. This is what I use personally. So what I do is I take the contents of the mini survival kit, I add some certain things to it, and that's what I carry with me. So I'll go into that a little bit too. So, but then we got medical. So we've also got some steri strips. So it's kind of like quick suture strips and some triple antibiotic just in case. And then to kind of do that double duty, we've got double duct tape in here. But again, this could also be used for a hot spot for blisters. It could be used for other medical things too. It could be used to pair with a water bag and tape up something that was a sucking chest wound if you had to. Now, better to carry a medical kit for that type of thing. However, it is pretty versatile. And then kind of last but not least, we include a little desiccant card. So basically what this will do is if there is moisture within your kit, and it's not going to treat it if you dunk it in water, but it will zap some of the moisture out of the kit and prevent it from gathering moisture, just from certain things. So like in the case of aqua tabs, if there's moisture in the kit, it could eat into the packaging eventually and, cause these to be useless. So it is important. And then you don't want things like the Tinder Quicks getting wet. This is, and these are packaged in a separate bag, but you just don't want that type of thing to get wet. So that's kind of the mini survival kit and a little bit of the concept around it. Let me open up this other kit and we'll come right back and I'll talk about this too. Okay, so I've got the multi-purpose container opened up just to show you kind of what's inside of that and the extra room and what I do with it. So again, all the components in our MSK are inside of this, but I've supplemented with things like a pack of chicken bouillon. I've got basically one of our entry cards. So this is a credit card sized lockpick set, actually 2 of them, so it's duplicate. You can punch them out and use them if you had to need lockpicks. Now I get it, survival situation where you're gonna need lockpicks. You never know. Always good to have them, right? So also include a little photon light. This is a white beam. We also have red too, but I like having something like this, a little squeeze light, and I like the photon lights because not only are they super dependable, but you can actually have a switch here that turns it on as a constant on, and that's a big thing to want in something like this if you're gonna carry one. So also, this is actually that older style compass, if you can actually see this little tiny one in here. So this is the one I mentioned that we've now replaced, but I've also got a little backup compass as well. I know it's probably not going to do much, but I like it. So again, also I carry a little small piece of fat wood because it's an excellent fire starter. It's really hard to beat when you need some tinder and there's nothing that's dry around, so that's a good thing to have too. And again, this has a gasket on the inside of the kit itself too, so it's important. And again, this is just a container. This is a supplement to the MSK, so you can add it on if you want. But again, I also carry like our brass fire starter. So this is something that throws a nice spark. So combined with the Tinder Quicks, it's even faster than getting out the ferro rod and trying to spark something. So this is a very quick, easy method for getting a fire started. And some people say, why not just carry a lighter? But I don't like lighters because they fail a lot and just don't want to deal with it. So then also, I carry a little small Leatherman, so this is kind of my supplement to the folding razor saw. And then last but not least, I have some safety pins and a little titanium whistle. So again, back to that signaling thing. This is kind of a glint tape that's in the inside of the MSK, so that's kind of signaling related, and then the whistle is kind of an addition too. So I always try to think of it in terms of those categories that we talked about and what can I add to kind of supplement that if I've got room, what's the smallest version of that I can find. So anyhow, that's our MSK. Hopefully you understood the explanation. I didn't ramble too much, but you can pick these up on ITS obviously, but I more wanted to talk about what was in it and the philosophy behind it.